All right, hello. We've got a new section that we're doing on my channel where I'm going to start doing some interviews as well. So I've historically been doing a lot of battle reports, but I want to start talking about some really great creators that I really like, and I'm really honored to have Jimmy from Miniature Gaming Montage come on. Really an honor for me. He's definitely a much bigger channel than me. So just Jimmy, thank you so much for just taking your time.
Absolutely. Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you, thank you. So if you know, I'll obviously put links to your channel, but you have a website. So if anyone wants to, miniaturegamingmontage.com, and then there's also YouTube, miniature gaming montage. Jimmy, is there anything else you just want to pitch? Just say, hey, go check this out.
No, I mean the website kind of has all the links to the social media info, whether that's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. So yeah, just check us out there and no, really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, thanks so much. So, we'll get into a little bit about why I had you on, but just so we're kind of getting to it, so tell us a little bit about, I was reading your history on your site that you sort of started this during COVID, I believe, but maybe just give us a little bit about your sort of your history in wargaming overall.
How far do we want to go back? Do we go
Oh,
into like your
just take your
childhood?
time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been playing this for 30 years, so I'm definitely know what you mean when you say
Yeah,
that.
so I'm probably one of the more aging guys in the hobby. I'm over 40, so I've been doing this for a while. But I was from a very small town, few thousand people. So there wasn't a whole lot of miniature gaming being played in the town that I grew up with. But growing up as an 80s kid, and seeing the internet come to be and everything else, like I fell in love with Warhammer Fantasy. When I first saw it, I'm not sure how I saw it,
Mhm.
but the image of, knights kind of charging down onto infantry, with lances out and things like that just gave me a crazy just picture in my head. And I said, I want to do that so bad. And I remember having to convince my parents to like get my first box,
Oh
which I
man.
actually have behind me, which is an old Warhammer Fantasy box. And I remember they just did not want to pay that kind of money for like these little plastic soldiers. Um, and I remember painting up my first miniature, and I can't remember how old I was, young teens, and painting up my first miniature, and it looked absolutely nothing like the box, you know. And I kind of fell out with it for quite some time because it's like kind of what I built and what I'd put together. It all of a sudden wasn't that colorful, deal that I had in my imagination, and I couldn't seem to bring that to life. This is before I knew that washes and shades existed
Yeah,
because that was the
yeah,
main
yeah.
problem. So it kind of shelved, and I kind of would check the website every once in a while, and it wasn't until gosh, probably 2010 when I got back into wargaming,
Oh
and
wow.
I
Yeah.
actually had my own money at this point in time, and I got into Flames of War of all things. I was at my
Hmm.
local shop, and there was a big group of people that were playing Flames of War, and got into the whole World War II aspect of it, and it really kind of drew me in. And I that was kind of the first game that I actually played against other people on the tabletop was Flames of War. And then from there, it kind of turned into Warhammer 40K, and
Hmm.
I'd bought into the last edition of Warhammer Fantasy. I think was it 8th edition?
Oh no, did you get in right before they blew it
I
up?
got in, I bought the starter box. They started end times. I had no idea what
Oh
was going
no.
on. And then everything got axed, and
Oh
I was
man.
so disheartened.
Oh, it's terrible. Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we ended up moving, and that was from South Carolina to Texas. And when we got here, there was a much bigger, gaming population and things like that. I started to get into more games. I found a good fantasy game called Kings of War. Again, there
Yep.
was another local group here that was playing it, and I got really into that. Got into the tournament scene for a little while and did those and had a ton of fun. I actually still have three fully painted Kings of War armies, undead, dwarves, and the elves.
All good.
Uh,
All
so
good.
from there, it just kind of has snowballed into so much more. And, when the pandemic hit in 2020, my son and me, I was trying to figure out things to get my kids away from wanting to be on tablets and electronics all the time. I thought I stumbled across Necromunda. Necromunda's been out for a long time. And as long as it was 2D, it just seems like it just, I would glance right over it. I just had no
Mhm.
interest in that kind of 2D board game kind of feel where you had
Yeah,
some
you're
miniatures
right.
out there and the bulkheads.
Yep.
And then they released Dark Uprising. And when I saw the 3D terrain and the
Hmm.
setup and everything else, my imagination went right back to when I was a kid again. And it's like I could see, I could just see in my head, how that would look and to build and to paint now that I felt a little more comfortable, more confident, more skilled at painting. And I said, "Hey, look, do you want to, play this game and maybe record it, tell a story, put this out on YouTube and see if anybody watches it." And we ended up doing that, and it just kind of started to, snowball into other things and other games, and next thing I know, here we are.
Well, that is like so. For one, I definitely saw Kings of War. We probably unknowingly may have bumped into each other because I was into Kings of War and doing the tournament scene in Texas. So we very well may have played in a tournament and just maybe because yeah, Kings of War is a great game, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you like me found a refugee whenever they blew up a. I feel bad for you because at least I played fantasy for a few years before they like blew it up on us.
Right. The
Um,
the entire Kings of War group here, they were all Warhammer Fantasy refugees.
mhm.
And yeah, they always talked about how random the game was, and they would always talk about these memories, and yeah, I liked Kings of War to an extent, but then when I started to really get into it and understand how much of a chess match that it was, and how competitive, it was in the tournament scene, I kind of fell out just a little bit, and that gaming group kind of did a little too. They started playing A Song of Ice and Fire,
Yeah, yeah.
which I just never could really get into. So I'm still open to play Kings of War if anybody happens to have an army. So
Wow, well, it's been a little bit. I've got out of a King's War. I've got a lot more into OPR. But I still, like you said, I'm still a rank and flank guy as well. Now, one thing you mentioned is Necromunda, and I think it's great that you pointed out that it is a game that really brought in the third dimension because, like, I remember when Necromunda came out in the 90s, and you're right, that terrain and the way the game was built was on that third dimension. Really, first of all,
yeah.
Necromunda is just an incredible game, and I love that GW brought it back. So well, we could go on and on about all sorts of you like just you talking makes me want to like open up the vein. But this could go for 3 hours. So, but we're gonna
Easy.
try to yeah try to just keep this sort of time managed here. So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the games you play now? I know you've been leaning a little more towards skirmish content. You have had OPR. You've got some Kings of War stuff on there, some 40K. But I've been noticing more of your stuff has been leaning towards skirmish.
Right.
What are sort of your favorite skirmish games right now?
So favorite skirmish games right now, obviously Necromunda is a
Hmm.
staple of my channel. I love the storytelling element. I love the setting. I love how there's risk and consequences from game to game. You're not just playing a game, what you do in that game and what happens to your characters can and will impact your next or future games. I absolutely love that aspect.
Hmm.
I have like the new kill team that they've put out. I think those rules are pretty clean. You can tell that the new kill team set is really geared toward more of a competitive experience, which I'm not really about, but I still enjoy Kill Team as a skirmish game, just a game to play. I have recently gotten into a new game called the Silver Bayonet,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that I've absolutely been in love with. I've painted up some miniatures. I put a battle report out for that, And Trench Crusade is coming up. I'm really, really looking forward to Trench Crusade. I've been looking at that game for probably 8 or 9 months now. Put a few
Mhm.
videos out on the channel on it, kind of how to play videos and things like that. I actually had Thomas Pirinen, make a cameo in one of my videos, which
Oh,
was
that's so cool.
incredible.
Oh, that's so cool.
Mordheim, I got into that as well, which Mordheim has been absolutely awesome. I've missed out on so many of these older games. And then you're right, I do play some OPR stuff every now and then.
Mhm.
But for OPR, it's kind of that grimdark future. That's where I kind of lean to for my OPR fix.
Yeah, I'll shout out as one as well. Another I've heard a lot of good things about is Blackout that you have over there. And I
Oh,
haven't,
that's right.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
played it,
yeah.
but a lot of my friends tell me they want to get. And I wanted to so get because you've definitely have some Trench Crusade content, and I sort of look at your channel that you've got a really good mind for kind of the skirmish games, and I wanted to kind of just from a topical perspective say, okay, we've got this game Trench Crusade. I know I'm getting into it. You're getting a lot of people. I think the Kickstarter is like with the pass goes up over 4 million now, right?
It's
So
incredible.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to kind of, and I think you've already done this a little bit, talking about Necromunda, talking about Mordheim and some other games. Where do you sort of, how do you sort of feel Trench Crusade is going to fit into the skirmish game ecosystem? Because skirmish games right now, I mean, there's just so many great ones.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and shame on me for not mentioning Blackout. We've had
Hmm.
a ton of fun with that game. From a just put some miniatures on the table and get a good game in 45 minutes to an hour and get kind of that core tactical experience, very lethal and deadly. Blackout has been an excellent game. But I recently put a little blog post on my website called The Rise of Skirmish Games.
Hmm.
And I think it is something that people as we get older and the gaming demographic is getting older. You know,
Hmm.
these folks that have been gaming since the 80s and 90s are starting to push into the area where they have families, kids, they have jobs, they have a lot of responsibilities going on. So skirmish games just allow that avenue of, hey, look, it's much easier to paint up 10 to 15 miniatures and play a game for an hour, hour and a half, which is legitimately an hour, hour and a half, not say, hey, look, it's 2 hours and it takes
Yeah.
four. Um, I just think that skirmish games are just better fit for my schedule and better fit for everything that we do here. Trench Crusade, I think, is going to carve its own niche. And a lot of people have said, "Hey, look, this is 40K, it's grim dark, and it's all that." But I completely disagree. I
Hmm.
genuinely do because it is dark, but it is just in I feel like a world of its own. You know, I mean, they blend history
Yeah.
with just this dark heaven and hell war that's going on and it just hits different for me. So the lore is deep, and I think Trench Crusade is going to be a fantastic game. I think it's going to be very well embraced, and I think it's going to be well supported because Thomas and his team have said that Trench Crusade is all about a labor of love. And
Yeah.
when they get done with their real jobs, they can't wait to get home to work on Trench Crusade. And
Hmm.
when you've got that kind of passion behind the development of the game, they are making it for the gamers, not for people in a boardroom.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is going to set it apart.
Yeah, I think I got the chance to interview Scanner Barkley, who's the big he got me him and a few others got me into the that's how I found out about Trench Crusade. And I think what we had it's interesting you mentioned about history. Trench Crusade, even though it's crazy, there's a certain realness about the lore that it I know it's like it's almost like that saying, what is it? Reality is oftentimes stranger than fiction. That there is a
Yeah,
certain real element to like a lot of this craziness sort of happened in the trench, and there was this sort of craziness sort of going on in the
that's
Crusades. So
right.
yeah, yeah, they it's very grounded. It's sort of I think that's what makes so good. Like, it really does make sense. So Do you feel so? Are you going to be bringing in? So it sounds like you are going to be bringing in Trench Crusade to sort of your repertoire of games you'll be bringing on.
Absolutely. I actually bought a 3D printer over the day after Thanksgiving, specifically for Trench Crusade.
Oh wow,
So
wow.
if they could have done a partnership with Elegoo or someone else, they probably could have made a massive kickback because I'm sure there's other people like me that bought
Hmm.
a printer specifically for Trench Crusade.
Hmm. Would you like to see Trench Crusade expand? Because I know that I think even Thomas, I'm watching an interview where he mentioned he wants to create a tank. So feels like he's already thinking about maybe moving this up to a 40K sort of an official sort of a war game sort of setting. Um, how would you kind of feel about that? Or do you like where Trench Crusade is in sort of this skirmish, but also like you mentioned, like Necromunda, it's that combo of skirmish with an RPG element. Like I said, you do it is primarily meant to play games like Blood Bowl and you advance up or people die and that sort of stuff.
Right. So for me, I like where Trench Crusade is at right now. And I'm one of
Hmm.
those people where I would like to see something slowly grown. I would like to enjoy the experience. And like many people, I've yet to play an official game. I mean, I've gotten some miniatures out and I've done my how to play video and kind of done some small exercises and things like that. But as far as, setting up a real battlefield and getting all the miniatures, because the miniatures haven't been released yet, I haven't proxied anything and had a real game. I would like to have that core experience for some time. And I'm not one of those people that's going to be playing Trench Crusade religiously, like,
Hmm.
every week. Like a lot of people will do that and they will probably want that progression a little faster. But for someone like me that's probably playing it, maybe once, maybe twice a month,
Hmm.
I would prefer things to go nice and easy.
Hmm.
I really like the skirmish format. And when you start to introduce tanks and things like that, the scale starts to feel a little bigger.
Hmm.
So if they could maybe weave in some kind of things like that to where they're objectives, if you look at Blackout, they have these really big mechs that are
Oh yeah.
super powerful for both sides. If they could do something like that, keep it skirmish, keep the culture of the skirmish game in place, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, yeah. So, and but at the same time, once or twice a month, that is I would consider that to be sort of a pretty religious player almost. I mean, that's yeah, to fit that in, and like I said, we're all busy. I think that's still, I mean, that feels a pretty big commitment that you're excited enough to say that, right? And you, especially with your background in playing a lot of these skirmish games. Do you have a faction that just has really grabbed you in Trench Crusade yet?
For me, for Trench Crusade, I feel like that there's a lot of bad going on
Uh-huh. Uh,
in this environment that they've created, a lot of it. And most of the time, when I'm looking at games, I tend to lean towards like evil kind of factions. I like the undead. As a perfect example for my fantasy settings and things
mhm.
like that. But because this world that they've created is so chaotic and just seems so awful, I'm leaning more towards New Antioch,
Okay.
which is kind of the beacon, if you will.
Yeah.
And two, they have these really, really cool looking mech models
Hmm.
that I cannot wait to print and paint.
Okay, that's pretty well. And you do have like you come from the Flames of War side of things, so I mean, that's where I sort of am coming from. I love in Kings of War, for instance, I play Kingdoms of Men. I actually have a Crusader army for Kings of War. That's Crusaders. So I always liked that idea of just regular men going up against undead, going up and all these things and just like still beating them. So
Right.
that definitely kind of is got me interested in New Antioch. Although I'm already starting to kind of look at trench programs.
Yes.
Man, the trench programs as well. Like I'm already like, oh,
The
so I
models,
may,
the models are so unique. I mean, they are so cool. Like, I would love to do the Trench Pilgrims as well. I mean, the models are just fantastic. They've done such a great job sculpting and bringing these things to life. And I actually had the opportunity to print out a few of the really early Trench Pilgrim models, and they
Mhm.
just look absolutely fantastic. So I can't wait to see all the options that they're going to come out with.
That's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna give you some more tougher questions. So one, like I said, I think that you've really I haven't played a lot of skirmish games these last years. I'm really getting into it this year. If you could pick, so put aside Trench Crusade, if you could pick three skirmish games, so if you're put on a desert island and you can only play three skirmish games, what are your sort of top three skirmish games that you just would just have to put?
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a tough question.
I obviously have to go with Necromunda.
Yeah.
It's got to be in there. I mean, and the thing is, Necromunda, I've been playing it for years, and each time I play, it is a different experience. And Necromunda, when I play, it's never about winning.
Mhm.
I'm never putting my miniatures on the table to try to, go out and smash my opponent or, or win the game. It's really just to see interesting things happen. So I think that Necromunda, even as much as I've played it, I could take it on a desert island and still play it for a very long time into the future.
Yeah.
So Necromunda would definitely be in there. I can't speak to Trench Crusade right now because the miniatures aren't
Mhm.
out. The game isn't, in my hands right now, so I couldn't take that on the island with me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Gosh, this is a tough question. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many good ones out there. Relic Blade was another one that we had a lot of fun with, and my son wants to play another game of Relic Blade.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, which Relic Blade, smaller game by Sean Sutter, more of one of those indie games, but still a ton of fun. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. We get the tough questions here. And that's the interesting thing I wanted to ask that to you because I'll post that blog article, but you're right. There are so many great skirmish games out there that it's really like trying to just, to pick. And yeah, we got one more. We're gonna try and get one more out of you. So we got Necromunda Relic Blade.
Yeah, I would probably, I mean, it's kind of a toss up. I could easily take Blackout.
Uh-huh. Oh wow.
Um,
Wow.
I could also take Kill Team.
Wow.
I do like Kill Team as a skirmish game.
Wow. And that's interesting because you saying Blackout, it makes me want to play it more. Like I've had several of my friends who like, you need to play Blackout, and I'm just like, I know, but I can't. So you saying that actually makes me want to get into Blackout more because like for you to like put that topic, wow, that's saying something. Well, I could talk to you all day and Jimmy, but I want to sort of, like I said, I'd love to sort of find out your favorite piece of lore, right? So fantasy, you can pick one of both, but throughout your years, if you could pick just like one lore of sci-fi and one lore for fantasy, what is just your favorite sci-fi and fantasy faction? What we like a faction basically, right? So what would you just has really just stuck with you through the years? Um, and it can
So
be
I would say
GW or
from
beyond, yeah.
a fantasy aspect, probably undead.
Hmm.
Just anything with necromancers raising skeletons, mummies, zombies, that type stuff, wolves. I
Mm.
really like undead factions in a lot of games. I tend to just lean towards undead. They've always been cool. I really enjoy them. And then I've also liked that human aspect as well, like the Bretonnians, the knights
Yeah.
in shining armor, if you will. So kind of the extreme light and the extreme dark for fantasy. In a sci-fi setting, that's an interesting that's an interesting one. Gosh, I hate to say that I'm a Space Marine player,
Yeah.
when I actually do play 40K, but I do lean to Dark Angels, the
Yeah.
I guess the Keeper of Secrets, I've always been a Deathwing guy. So I would say for sci-fi lore and gaming, it would probably be the Deathwing and the Dark Angels.
I mean, that's a great pick. That's a great pick. I mean, Dark Angels and those new models have been so good for Dark Angels. The newer ones for Deathwing are coming out. Well, that's
Right.
cool. So, we'll kind of close it here. I like to ask people like, what is your if you could have a dream wargaming experience, you'd have all the time in the world. What would your dream wargaming experience be?
Oh gosh, I would love to just have more people around that enjoyed what I enjoy. A lot of, I guess my circle that I'm in, everybody's preoccupied, with other things, other hobbies, like take golf as a perfect example. I wish I had more people around me that wanted to come to the house or come to my studio, if that's what you want to call it, and just roll dice, have a good time. And when I do find those people, you've got to be one willing to play, and two, you got to have a painted army because you want it to look good on the table, obviously. And what I find a lot of the times is that a lot of people don't care to paint their armies, or they play very competitively, which I'm obviously not that. Uh, so for me, I would love to have that play on tabletop type of experience. I would
Oh, that's
love to be able
cool.
to invest in cameras and lighting and just make some of these amazing battle reports that tell a story and they look cinematic.
Oh,
And
that's
Play On does
cool.
a lot of other games as well, but they primarily do 40K. I would love to bring some of these other games to life. And I know they've done some Star Wars Legion. I would love to bring Necromunda to life the way that they do, or to bring Blackout or some of these other games to life like they do. That would be kind of my ultimate dream.
Wow, that's super cool. Super cool. Well, I'd love to keep you on. Maybe we could maybe eventually we could get you back on the channel in the future. But so just tell us a little bit, Jimmy, about what some future plans do you have going into 2025 for the miniature gaming montage?
Yeah, so going into 2025, we are going to kick back up Mordheim. So we played 3 games of Mordheim in 2024. We'll look to continue that in 2025. We got another battle report. I think we'll line up in January. Trench Crusade is obviously going to be a big one, and I am actually working on my trench terrain every day. So I've got my 3D printer running nonstop, printing trenches and terrain. I'm going to have all that painted up. So when the miniatures get here, I'll be ready to print and paint those as well. So Trench Crusade will be a big one. And then we're going to continue on with more of our regular content. We'll have bolt action. We're going to try to do more bolt action this year than we have in the past. And Necromunda will obviously continue. Kill Team will continue. Blackout we will continue to do. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting 2025.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Well, I'm going to continue to follow your channel. I love that you are actually printing out like that is my dream there. Is trying to get some good trench terrain. Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Please go check out his channel, Miniature Gaming Montage. He has some great battle reports. I mean, the production quality is terrific, and just Jimmy, just thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you.